I am from 56 Army Cadet Unit Fremantle. It is my honour to be your Master of Ceremonies today. Thank you for attending the 44th Battalion Memorial Service. This will be the 5th hour of the service. There are 9 more to go throughout the day. I would like to start by recognising the special guests and support we have present for this ceremony. Councillor Jill Goetz, Town of Claremont. John the 23rd College. 51 Army Cadet Unit Swan Regiment, Drums and Pipes.
Stationary.
56 Army Cadet
Stationary,
Unit,
right?
Fremantle. I now ask everyone to please stand, if possible, for the mounting of the catapult party.
Catapult party rises and hold, march.
Thank you. Please be seated. I now call on the Director of the 44th Australian Infantry Battalion Memorial, Mr. Luca Muir Anderson, to explain the ceremony.
Hello. My name is Luca Muir Anderson. I'm the founder and director of the 44th Australian Infantry Battalion Memorial and great-grandson of John McKeon, who served in that unit. I'm also a trooper in the Australian Army Reserve. I created the 44th Battalion Memorial in March of this year because I saw a real lack of recognition for this particular unit. It was one of 5 battalions raised in Western Australia during the Great War. However, it is the only one to no longer exist, having been disbanded in 1960. As such, it has started to become forgotten over the years. They do not have their own physical cenotaph, and until now, they did not have their banner marched on Anzac Day. The stories of the thousands of men who served in the battalion and the 482 who gave the supreme sacrifice in the defence of our country are at real risk of fading away. This is the first memorial service dedicated solely to the 44th Battalion in many years, as the old association ceased to exist long ago. There will be 15 ceremonies today, going from dawn until dusk, each one representing a different battle and having different songs, poems and stories. The names of all the soldiers on the 44th Battalion Honour Roll will be read throughout the day. There is an honour guard, band and speakers present throughout the whole day, and the main ceremony will take place at 11 a.m, where His Excellency the Governor of Western Australia, Chris Dawson AC APM, will review the memorial. Our memorial aims to keep the individual stories of the soldiers alive. We do this through our interactive website, which details how many days a specific soldier was at the front line, what awards they earned, what battles they fought in, when they were sick, what they did before the war, who their family were, and etc. This is quite a demanding project, as even if we complete 1 soldier a day, it would take over 6 years to complete. Luckily, many members of the community donate their time to complete the biographies of the soldiers. The memorial also conducts ceremonies for individual soldiers, the goal being to individually commemorate every soldier in the battalion. We have done 12 of those smaller ceremonies in the suburbs of Perth, the towns of the Wheatbelt, and with the Swedish Embassy in Canberra, commemorating nearly 70 soldiers so far. We also had Christchurch Grammar School create a faithful copy of the 44th Battalion banner, which was signed by the Mayor of Claremont, mimicking the raising ceremony of the 44th Battalion in 1916, 108 years ago. This banner was then marched on Anzac Day this year for the first time in many years. I thank you all for attending and hope that you find this a meaningful service.
Thank you, Director. I will now read out the story of the 44th Battalion, Australian Imperial Force. Raised in Claremont in January 1916, it was the last battalion to be raised in Western Australia during the war. It originally left Western Australia with 1,000 men under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Mansbridge on the 6th of June 1916 and arrived in England the following month to continue their training. They nicknamed themselves Old Bill's 1,000. Another 1,500 men would join the 44th Battalion as reinforcements over the following 18 months. The 44th Battalion AIF arrived in France in late November 1916 and the following month was sent to the front line of the Armentières sector. Over a period of 3 months, the battalion suffered nearly 70 killed from constant attritional warfare. From May to August 1917, the 44th Battalion fought brutal engagements at Messines and suffered nearly 130 killed in the deadliest overall engagement for the unit. Lieutenant Colonel James Clark took over command of the unit after the battle and would remain in command until the end of the war. The deadliest month of their entire service came in October 1917, shortly after the Battle of Messines, when they were committed to the hellish fighting at Passchendaele and Broodseinde. In the span of less than 3 weeks, the battalion suffered over 90 killed and 750 wounded or sick, a casualty rate of 84%. After months of recovering, the 44th Battalion was desperately committed to slow down the advance of the German Spring Offensive from March to May 1918, suffering nearly 60 killed, but successfully halting the enemy advance in one of the most chaotic operations of the war, often not knowing where the front line was. On the 4th of July 1918, the West Australians fought alongside the Americans in one of their first engagements, the Battle of Hamel, suffering 30 killed in a single day. The month of August 1918 saw the battalion fight and win in 2 decisive battles, the Battle of Amiens and the Second Battle of the Somme. From this point onwards, the Imperial German Army was in constant retreat until the end of the war 100 days later. The battalion suffered 25 killed during these battles, but seized vast amounts of territory and took many prisoners. The final operation of the war for the 44th Battalion was to cross the St. Quentin Canal, take Mount St. Quentin and breach the heavily defended Hindenburg Line. This occurred on the 29th of September 1918. All of the 44th Battalion's objectives were seized on the first day, though at the cost of 30 killed. For the remainder of the war, the 44th Battalion was now down to just company strength, as reinforcements had ceased arriving for half a year. Only 80 men were capable of fighting. As such, it conducted rear duties until the armistice. During the war, the 44th Battalion, AIF, fought in nearly 24 engagements and received 16 battle honours. 2,642 men had served with the battalion, of whom 1,793 had become casualties, with 482 paying the supreme sacrifice. This represents a casualty rate of 68% and a fatality rate of 18%. For their service, members of the battalion received 125 awards for gallantry in action, 19 awards for leadership in action, 5 awards for other acts of service, 11 foreign awards from the United States, Belgium and France, and 1 man was anointed into an Order of Chivalry. After the war, the 44th Battalion was reformed as a Citizens Military Forces unit, consisting of 3 companies in Perth and 1 company in Bunbury. In the 1920s, it received King's Colours, regimental colours, a cap badge depicting a grass tree, a motto, an alliance with the Essex Regiment, and their regimental name became the West Australian Rifles. This unit continued to serve until 1960, being on home defence duties during the Second World War. Its lineage continues on today as the Royal Western Australian Regiment. I now call on John 23rd College to read out the story of the 44th Battalion's time in England.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Ong and I'm from John 23rd College. The 44th Battalion was sent to the English Salisbury Plain, near Stonehenge, to continue their training. Camp life in England was similar in routine to Australia. However, there were many more troops congregated, including over 15,000 Australian soldiers from the 3rd Division. Training was elementary, and the battalion went through the whole grind once more from recruit drill upwards. The battalion took part in their first ever brigade exercises as part of the 11th Brigade, alongside the 41st, 42nd and 43rd Battalions. With the abolition of the machine gun as an infantry weapon, the Lewis gun was introduced. The 44th Battalion Lewis Gunners in time became the best in the division, scoring above the other 12 battalions. The 44th Battalion at this stage had a definite personality. It was recognised by the individual as his home. It fed him, clothed him, and paid him. As a self-respecting soldier, he growled about most things within the battalion, but outside of it he always spoke and thought of it with genuine feelings of affection. When colours were issued, the oval blue and white Esprit de Battalion became the dominating impulse in the lives of the individuals who comprised it, and this second-to-none idea lasted right through the eventful history of the battalion. In other battalions it was the same. After the battalion, the brigade, then the division, and finally in a wider sphere, the average Australian soldier was intensely proud of the fact that he belonged to the Australian Corps. This intensified during the last year of the war. In order to test the fitness of the division for active service, a divisional parade was held. The chief feature of this was the energy and vim of the dozens of staff officers employed inspecting, and the thoroughness with which they carried out their jobs. Woe to the company commander who had allowed one of his men to come on parade with a trouser button missing. His name was taken and his military future was a blank. The 44th Battalion spent 4 months training in England on top of their 4 months training previously in Australia. Time was now getting on, and the battalion, with the remainder of the 3rd Division, was fretting under the fact that it was still in England and had been kept there while its 4 big brothers, the 1st, 2nd, 4th and 5th Divisions, had been fighting heavily in France all through the summer. However, on the 26th of November 1916, the battalion left England and arrived in France the following day. Before leaving England, His Majesty, the King Emperor George V, reviewed the whole of the troops on the Salisbury Plain. The parade marched past in columns of companies and made a wonderfully impressive sight. 2 men died while training in England.
Thank you. Throughout the day, the names of the 482 soldiers of the 44th Battalion who paid the supreme sacrifice will be read out. In this particular hour, 4 speakers will each read out 10 of the names. I now call up Councillor Jill Getz, John 23rd College, and the Memorial Director to come and assist me with reading the honour roll.
Private Samuel Davenport Cleland, poultry farmer from Southern Cross, died during service 14th of January 1919, age 33. Private Daniel Michael Clifford, labourer from Perth, killed in action in Messines 4th of June 1917, age 28. Sergeant Edward Duncan Collins, racecourse detective from Perth, killed in action at Armentières 24th of January 1917, age 33. Private Charles Thomas Comben, labourer from North Fremantle, killed in action at Hamel 4th of July 1918, age 29. Private Frank Connolly, brickmaker from Midland, died of disease 30th of September 1918. Lance Sergeant Mark Francis Connolly, baker from North Fremantle, died of wounds at Hamel 4th of July 1918, age 21. Private Albert James Coombs, bank clerk from East Perth, killed in action at Messines 9th of June 1917, age 21. Corporal Charles Horace Cornish, fireman from Midland, killed in action at Messines 5th of July 1917, age 24. Private James Brewster Cool, plumber from Leederville, killed in action at Messines 28th of June 1917, age 29. Private Frank Cox, farmhand from Pingelly, died of wounds at Passchendaele 21st of October 1917, age 31.
Private John Alexander Crane, farmhand from Claremont, killed in action at Messines 4th of June 1917, age 19. Lieutenant Aubrey Clarence Crawley, civil servant from Perth, killed in action at Le Bizet 17th of February 1918, age 28. Private Joseph Baden Powell Date, storeman from Fremantle, died of wounds at Broodside Ridge 4th of October 1917, age 19. Corporal Frederick William Davies, DCM, shop assistant from Cannington, died of wounds during the 100 Days Offensive, 5th of September 1918, age 21. Private Percy Davies, farmhand from York, killed in action at Broodside Ridge, 4th of October 1917, age 19. Private John George Walker Davis, silver plater from East Perth, killed in action during the German Spring Offensive, 12th of April 1918, age 21. Sergeant Ernest William Davis, labourer from Perth, killed in action during the German Spring Offensive, 28th of March 1918, age 31. Private Harold George Day, labourer from Wagen, died of wounds at Broodside Ridge, 4th of October 1917, age 22. Private Herbert Day, driver from Perth, died of wounds at Messines, 11th of June 1917, age 36. Private Alfred Deemer, farmer from Kojonup, killed in action at Broodside Ridge, 4th of October 1917, age 26.
Private Frank Hilton Dewar, farmer from Gingen, killed in action at Messines, 8th of June 1917, age 27. Private George James Dobson, striker from Bassendean, died of wounds 2nd of August 1917, age 42. Lieutenant Robert Ambrose Dobson, auctioneer from Perth, killed in action at Moreland Court, 24th of April 1918, age 35. Private Arthur Albert Dodd, stockman from Avino, killed in action at Messines, 16th of July 1917, age 22. Private Edward Doherty, shearer from Perth, killed in action at Messines, 8th of June 1917, age 25. Private John Alexander Doig, iron machinist from Midland, killed in action at Warrington, 31st of July 1917, age 40. Lance Corporal George Irwin Dorman, grocer from Fremantle, killed in action during the German Spring Offensive, 7th of April 1918, age 33. Corporal Walter Dove, labourer from Perth, killed in action at Passchendaele, 6th of October 1917, age 26. Private Peter Dowdy, labourer from Fremantle, killed in action at Messines, 8th of June 1917, age 25. Private Frederick James Drown, clerk from Kalgoorlie, died of wounds at Messines, 24th of June 1917, age 21.
Lieutenant John Drummond, fireman from Merredin, killed in action at Passchendaele, 10th of October 1917, age 25. Private Horace Duckham, baker from York, died of wounds at Hamel, 4th of July 1918, aged just 18. Private John Henry Duckham, brother of Horace Duckham, postal assistant from Narrogin, killed in action at Ploegstert, 28th of March 1917, age 20. Private Thomas Dunn, bushworker from Narrogin, died of disease, 7th of February 1919, age 46. Private John William Duty, farmer from Tamman, killed in action at Hamel, 4th of July 1918, age 27. Private Alfred Edwards, labourer from Nedlands, killed in action at Armentières, 14th of March 1917, age just 18. Private Reese Thomas Edwards, grocer's assistant from Bicton, died of wounds at Perth, 26th of June 1918, age 26. Sergeant David Arthur Edwards, mill hand from Guildford, died of wounds 19th of October 1918, age 26. Private Ernest Egling, shop assistant from Esperance, died of disease 5th of May 1917, age 20.
They were Australian soldiers who were experts in close combat. They were physically and mentally tough, compassionate and courageous. They led by example. They strove to take the initiative. They were committed to learning and working for their team. They believed in trust, loyalty and respect for their country, their mates and the army. The rising sun was their badge of honour. They are Australian soldiers, always. Thank you to all those who helped in reading out the honour roll. I now call on John 23rd College to read out the story of the 44th Battalion's embarkation.
Good morning. My name is Samuel Watts and I'm from John 23rd College. The battalion embarked on His Majesty's Australian transport ship A29 Cervic at Fremantle, and she cast off on the afternoon of the 6th of June, leaving behind the biggest crowd of people that had ever assembled in the West Australian waterfront. From the ship, the wharf appeared to be a blaze of colour, with the streamers stretching across the ever-increasing gap between the land and ship. Flags flying and handkerchiefs waving, the scene was most impressive. The feelings of the troops were mixed, glad to get away from the routine of monotony of peace, and yet sorry to see the last of loved ones, perhaps of all time. The ship was uncomfortably crowded, with over 1,600 men from 4 different units. There was scarcely room to move. Practically, the space available for exercise was only enough for 1 platoon at a time, so that parades consisted principally of lectures. There was only enough accommodation for 1/3 of the personnel on board. Consequently, 3 boat lists were drawn up, giving everyone a fortnight on the 6-week journey. After the first few days, lecturers became very stale, and yarns were told instead. There's nothing so monotonous as a long voyage on a crowded troop ship. Boat stations and inspections, throat inspections, feet inspections, kit inspections, inspections of quarters, and other inspections. In fact, everything but an inspection. These, with sports and concerts, helped to pass the time. Gambling was not officially allowed, but nevertheless the troops played poker for fun and house for money. Don't is a word the Aussie cannot make friends with. Sickness became prevalent in spite of the good work of the Australian Army Medical Corps, and unfortunately the battalion suffered its first death on board the ship. A young lad from Claremont, who had built up quite the reputation for his boxing skills, was the first victim, and the funeral service made a deep impression on everyone. With the ship stopped in mid-ocean, the padre standing over the dead reciting the mournful burial service, all ranks with bared and bowed heads, the bugler's last post, the firing party's volley, and then the heart-moving splash. And one comrade lived only in the memory of those who had known him in life. This sense of loss was great, and in striking contrast to the impression that even the lengthiest casualty list later on produced. Time hung heavily. Any strange fish or the spout of a whale
was sufficient to draw the attention of the unoccupied. The main employment of officers throughout the voyage was the censorship of letters. The instructions as to tabooed information was very strict, and this was probably everyone's first experience of having to curb their natural writing propensities. The job of censoring was an arduous one. The ship suffered some unexpected damages and had to be briefly repaired in Durban, South Africa. The ship was quarantined, and the troops were only allowed ashore on the route marches under close supervision. This order did not coincide with the views of the troops, and many of them took French leave. Guards were posted on the wharves, and on 3 occasions, tragedy was barely averted as many men attempted to push away the guards and officers. After leaving South Africa, the voyage continued under worse conditions than before. They entered the submarine zone, where at night all portholes had to be closed, all lights extinguished, and smoking was not allowed on deck. Strict watch had to be kept for submarines, and the guards' eyes became very wearisome due to staring at the same sector of water for hours at a time. Crossing the equator was celebrated with the usual ceremony and jollification of the time. One of the doctors was appointed as Father Neptune, and with his many vassals, instruments of torture, and nasty-tasting pills, he gave all the men something to help them remember the day. Towards the finish, the ceremony became a general melee, when a number of the previous victims tried to give Neptune a dose of his own medicine. Finally, on the 26th of July, 1916, the HMAT Cervic arrived at Devonport, England. Most of the men got their first glimpse of Blighty bathed in the most glorious morning sunshine. The voyage had cost the lives of 2 men.
Thank you. The piper from 51 Army Cadet Unit, Swan Regiment, Drums and Pipes will now play. College to read out the poem, A Soldier's Farewell.
Farewell to Australia, the land of our birth. Farewell to our loved ones, our home, our hearth. No more the sweet bottle, all laden with gold, but one glimpse of its beauty with love to behold. Now sails the big transport far over the sea, the cheers for Australia, the land of the free. If we ever return to your bright sunny shores, it will be when our fighting is needed no more.
Farewell, dear Australia, it may be for a while, it may be forever, our bright sunny isle. No matter our level land, wherever we be, will fight for you, honour and liberty. Then cheer for us, pray for us, help us to win, for our home and our country, for kith and for kin. Goodbye dear Australia, until we return to the land of the emu, the wattle and the fern.
Thank you. We will now lay the wreaths at the base of the memorial. Wreaths will be laid on behalf of RSLWA by Mr John Burridge, John 23rd College, the 44th Australian Infantry Battalion Memorial and 56th Army Cadet Unit Fremantle. Upon the conclusion of the laying of the official wreaths, I invite anyone in the audience to also lay a wreath if they have one. The piper from 51 Army Cadet Unit, Swan Regiment Drums and Pipes, will now begin the lament. Everyone please stand, if you are able, for the reciting of the ode, and remain standing for the last post, the 1 minute silence, the rouse, the Australian Royal Anthem and the Australian National Anthem. All of these, except the Australian Royal Anthem, will be played by 51 Army Cadet Unit, Swan Regiment, drums and pipes. They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them, lest we forget. Thank you all. Please remain standing for the dismounting of the catapult party.
Catapult party, eyes and work hard.
Thank you. Please be seated. I now invite the Memorial Director to give the closing address. I will also ask for everyone to take part in a formal photo in front of the memorial at the conclusion of this specific ceremony.
That is the end of the ceremony. Thank you all for attending. To end this ceremony, I leave you with a quote by Captain Longmore regarding the 44th Battalion. While memory lives, however, the fighting 44th will never die. To be with them over there was a privilege and an honour, a glorious page in any man's life. And when the final evening comes to us all, and the last pipe has been smoked, it will be of the comrades who wore the blue and white oval patch that will be proudly thinking. Theirs was a tradition that Australia will do well to perpetuate, whilst there's a growing generation of free men and women left to be inspired by it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are those free men and women. Please join me now for the group photo.